Welcome to On the Firing Line on the information station, AM 1440 KUHL. Information, education, news, and politics of firearms and ammunition is found here. If you have any questions, call us at 1-888-625-1440. That's 1-888-625-1440.
A married couple was returning to their home in Selmont, Alabama, when they happened upon a pair of burglars. Upon being discovered, one of the burglars attacked the husband. The husband responded by drawing a pistol and shooting the attacker, killing him and causing his accomplice to flee. Following the incident, Sergeant Mike Grantham of the Dallas County Sheriff's Department noted, "At this point, everything we have found, everything the investigation has turned up, tells us this was a justified shooting." This brought to you by the Selma Times-Journal, Selma, Alabama, October 29th, 2013.
You are on the firing line with Matt and Joe. Be a part of today's show by giving us a call at 1-888-625-1440, or if you're in the Santa Maria area, give us a call at 928-1440.
And don't forget, you can always tune in to our Facebook page, leave comments, read some of the articles we leave behind. We also put the outline of the show up there all the time.
Yep, and that's on the firing line with Matt and Joe on Facebook.
Yep. And, of course, don't forget, once more, you can always sign up at am1440.com, listen to the show anywhere in the world.
That's true. It's the truth.
In the free world, that is.
Yes, we stress free.
Yes, freedom. Freedom comes at a cost, though. How many of us are willing to pay for it?
Niet.
Today we're going to be talking about pro-Second Amendment, leading us into the Santa Maria Times, or the Santa Maria makes top 10 most violent cities in California. Unbelievable.
Yeah, very interesting.
To follow that up, we're going to have an article that is 25 years murder-free in Guntown, USA.
Woohoo!
Just to show that guns can make a difference. And
for the better.
yeah, absolutely. I think so. As long as they're in competent hands and people that have the common sense. Well, common sense is...
Yeah.
There's still some out there.
And it goes a long way. You know, a small dose of common sense goes a long way.
A long way. But it's an interesting topic, and I think we need to ask ourselves, why is there so much crime in Santa Maria? What's brought it about? What can we do about it? And what are the examples of places where they have less crime? What makes them have less crime?
Yeah, how did they get there?
It's an interesting thing to talk about. But let's go back to our Second Amendment encounter.
Well, you know, I mean, this kind of shows how crucial it can be if you carry a weapon on you. I think if this guy here, he says he drew a pistol, when he saw the attacker. So I'm gonna take a leap and assume that he probably had a weapon on him. This is a situation where if he had it any other place than on his persons, something bad probably would have happened to him and his wife.
Yeah, can you imagine having to go get it out of your locked box?
No,
Excuse me, hold on a second.
Yeah, it's the old joke. Hold on.
I'm going to call the police, and I'm going to go get my gun out of my box. Just wait right there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and it's a shame that we even have to joke around like that, and it's a shame that this type of stuff happens, but the reality is that it does, and that there are tools out there to stop it immediately, and I don't agree with people that are trying to stop us from being able to protect ourselves.
Well, and that's just it. I think here in California, Republicans and Democrats alike don't really believe in our Second Amendment enough, or have the knowledge of what the forefathers really meant by it, and wish to distort it and wish to be able to discuss it and bring it up for interpretation when it really shouldn't be open for interpretation. It's an amendment that stands concrete.
Yep.
And
shall not be infringed.
Exactly. See, the whole thing that I think is you cannot guarantee public safety. And until the day you can, you have to allow for the Second Amendment. And when I say public safety, that doesn't necessarily just mean the safety from those criminals who will break the laws, but it also means the criminals in higher positions of government. And even neighborhoods, cities, counties,
and
states.
To my understanding, that was kind of the whole genesis of the Second Amendment.
Absolutely.
It was to stop it from the corrupt people that are above you than what they may do to the population.
Yep.
So it goes from everywhere to the guy breaking into your home, all the way up to somebody who's, telling the people of the country to do unjust and not right things, for the lack of better words there.
I think it was said that we're not supposed to have an actual standing military within our country's borders. we're not supposed to have our military policing us or going around doing different things, if I remember correctly.
Yep, that's martial law.
But we do use martial law. And can you imagine, because your home's being broken into, that we have to enact martial law? Can you imagine, because murder rates go up so high, we have to enact martial law? What that invites in the bigger picture?
Yep.
These are scary things to think about. And we really have to sit down, and as we are the people, we run the government, not the government the other way around. We need to be able to discuss things, come up with things, and think about the people that we're putting in office that will do what we wish them to do, not what they think we wish them to do.
Yeah, that's a good point. We need some fresh thoughts too. I think everybody who's against the whole Second Amendment thing, they kind of are revamping old arguments. And of course, like you just said, if something happens, it opens the floodgates for a lot worse stuff. And
absolutely.
I just wish people could see that.
Well, here's another thing too. I think that mankind wants to be able to protect themselves, wants the better life. And that's something you can't take away from them by making laws. So at some point, there's got to be some give here in us following the laws or something. I'm not saying we got to go out and break laws and do bad things.
No, but there's a happy medium somewhere. I would like to think, anyhow.
What happened to the spirit of the law instead of the letter of the law?
That's very true.
And that was something that was inherent in all of our police officers for many, many years.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be, because
as long as it was within the spirit of the law, that's what it, that was what it boiled down to usually. And
I'm not talking bad about police, because I think there's still a lot of police officers out there that do believe in the spirit of the law, that, if they find you doing something wrong and they take a look at the circumstances, take a look at everything, they're going to use the spirit of the law to determine whether or not you're supposed to be brought in. Nowadays, though, it's so hard for them to do that, I think, because of litigation and everything else, that it's become ridiculous. I mean, everybody sues for everything. Look at the lady from McDonald's, and now we've got another one from McDonald's
careful
for hot coffee.
Yeah, who doesn't know the hot coffee is hot? I mean, come on, really?
What happened to taking responsibility for our own actions and doing the right thing, because it is the right thing, and it's a good feeling when you do the right thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Unbelievable. But back to this Second Amendment encounter, I think you're right. We see somebody who's got a concealed weapons permit, or if their state doesn't need one, he's able to carry the gun. He's able to use it to protect his family. Even under attack, he's able to use it, which shows a lot too.
Yeah, that's a big one right there.
When the adrenaline gets going, you never know what you're going to do. And hopefully, if you've trained and you've practiced and you've mastered something, you'll fall back on it, and that'll be what you're supposed to do. Another thing, it's nice to see that through their investigations, through everything that they found, it was a justified thing to do. It was justified to take the life of somebody who committed battery. And remember this, assault and battery are two different things. Assault is not when you beat somebody up. That's battery.
Yeah, if you sneeze on somebody, you can assault them.
Yeah, standing in somebody's way is assault.
Yeah.
Or getting in their face, that's assault. Battery is when contact touches, and a battery can be, hey, I flicked a fly off your shoulder, but it wasn't an invited touch, or I didn't invite you to flick that fly off. Yeah. That's battery.
And that's a good way of looking at kind of like suing for the hot coffee. Is, if somebody flicks you on the shoulder because of whatever, maybe you shouldn't get all crazy.
Let it slide off your sleeve.
Exactly. If you really don't like it, then don't hang out with that person anymore.
But on the other hand, if that person proceeds to whoop your butt,
that's a little bit of a different story.
I think, that's bodily harm, and at some point you have the right to stop it any way you can.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when adrenaline gets going, sometimes people won't stop, and they will possibly kill you or maim you.
And almost everybody as a kid was told to stick up for yourself, And so it's
nowadays,
not downloaded in us to just sit there and take a beating.
Right.
You got to defend yourself and stand up for yourself. And it's just...
Although in our schools nowadays, if you stand up for your stuff, you're going to be kicked out of the school quite possibly, Yeah, and that's a shame.
It really is, because that doesn't instill... That takes away confidence. That takes away a whole lot of things that helps a person grow, I think.
Maybe we need more cameras in our schools.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Then you can see who the aggressor is. See how it builds up. And when you have a child that stands up for himself...
Yeah, that's actually a good point.
He should be awarded as a hero.
Yeah, bullying is bullying.
What are heroes?
Yeah, that's a good point. And just because somebody's younger or in school or something, there's heroes in all different walks of life.
We all want privacy, and I guess we're kind of guaranteed the privacy to a great extent within our Constitution. But when you're on public ground, I kind of like the idea of cameras being out there watching to help us defend ourselves. I know that's a touchy situation.
It's kind of like
a lot of people don't like that necessarily. Well,
double-edged sword, I mean, I do totally see where you're coming from, how it could probably help with things, but
when you have the possibility of corrupt government and corrupt
watching
officials
over you all the time,
that information can be misused.
Yeah.
And that's true. Unbelievable. All right, we should probably take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to jump into Santa Maria makes top 10 most violent cities in California, and then after that, we'll hit our pro-Second Amendment article. And, of course, following that, 25 years murder-free in Guntown, USA.
All right.
Be right back with you.
We'll be back to more of On the Firing Line with Joe and Jim after this.
This is On the Firing Line with Matt, Jim, and Joe. We'll be right back with you on the firing line. If you have any questions, give us a call at 888-625-1440 or in the Santa Maria area, 928-1440. Don't forget, you can always listen in on am1440.com.
Tactical Guns and Gear is the Central Coast leader in tactical rifles, pistols, shotguns, and accessories. Building an AR-15, they have lower receivers, parts kits, trigger groups, and a ton of other AR parts from the most popular companies and stuff.
They are also the home of the Women's 101 Firearms and Women's Advanced Pistol classes and have trained thousands of local ladies.
The store is located off the 101 freeway in Santa Maria near the North Broadway exit. Look for the big rifle sign on the freeway as well as the giant 5-ton Tactical military truck, and they're now open on Mondays. America!
On the Firing Line is happy to have Law Offices of Christopher Coleman as a sponsor. The Law Offices of Christopher Coleman is located in Santa Barbara on 2019B State Street, specializing in personal injury and, more importantly, the Second Amendment and On the Firing Line with Matt and Joe. Give them a call at 805-682-3352, serving the Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, and San Luis Obispo areas for over 25 years.
Now, a great word from Santa Maria Motorcycles, formerly Santa Maria Harley-Davidson, located at 2022 Presker Lane. They are dealers for Honda, Kawasaki, and Harley-Davidson. Grab your family and go see the museum, filled with exciting older bikes that you won't see anywhere else on the Central Coast. As well, they are the #1 motorcycle dealer on the Central Coast with the largest inventory around. Go in and see Martin Buchanan, or you can give him a call at 805-928-3668. You can also go visit them every first Thursday of the month for Bike Night. Starts at 6 p.m. Have a great time with your family at Santa Maria Motorcycles. You are on the firing line with Matt, Jim, and Joe today.
Be a part of today's show by calling in at 1-888-625-1440. Or if you're in the Santa Maria area, give us a call at 928-1440.
And of course, don't forget to check us out on Facebook on the Firing Line with Matt and Joe.
That's right, you're back on the Firing Line. And we're going to get into the new reported Santa Maria being in the most violent top 10 cities in California, which is a little bit, I'm sure that you all have an opinion about it, because I sure do. So give us a call, 1-888-625-1440 and 928-1440. And let's talk about this, because this is something, everybody who's listening to this, chances are you're fairly close to this area. So let's hear your input.
Yeah, why are you so violent? What makes Santa Maria so violent?
Yeah.
So, hey.
Calm down, you guys.
All right, this article was written by Liberty Zabala, and it's titled, Santa Maria makes top 10 most violent cities in California. So here it goes. Santa Maria, California. The city of Santa Maria has made the top 10 list of the most violent cities in California. But the city analyst says Santa Maria's most violent crimes have actually gone down. There's a lot of results in robberies and burglaries being reported, and certainly the gangs are a contributing factor to that, says Santa Maria City analyst Mark Vandekamp. According to the FBI's Uniform Crime Report of 2012, Santa Maria has a little more than 101,000 residents across the city, with a crime rate of about 6.78 violent crimes per 100,000 residents. Last year, there were more than 2,000 property crimes, more than 1,000 larceny thefts, and more than 500 aggravated assaults. But We have some of our Part 1 violent crimes decrease in the last 4 years, says Vandy Camp. The number of homicides has dropped. The number of reported rapes have dropped in half, and the number of robberies in Santa Maria is at its lowest in the last 4 years. Wow.
Yeah, that's it's almost like it's two opposites. You know, we're the most violent city, or we're in the top 10 violent now, but we're the lowest crime in the past 4 years.
So what does that say in itself?
Yeah.
And the Santa Maria Police Department is working with the city to combat crime with its revamped community services unit and its recent gang sweep in the north side of town. The city is making a real public effort, encouraging everyone to report crime, says Vandy Camp. So if you see something, say something. So far this year, Santa Maria has seen 2 homicides, 11 reported rapes, and 66 robberies.
Well, yeah, and something that for me, you know, I got to tell myself is we're living in a small town. So even though these numbers, you know, when you just hear them out there, it might not sound like a huge astronomically high number, but for a small town, it's pretty high. You know, having
I think
over
you're right.
1,000 of these each crimes, or
Normally,
however it is.
you would see this kind of thing happening in the larger cities where there's people crammed together and stuff. We're a rural city. What has happened? Why are the crime rates getting out of hand?
Yeah.
You know, and sure, Vandy Camp says that some crime areas are going down for us. You know what? Let's go back and look at some of the statistics.
Yeah.
And we have to ask ourselves, why are crimes at its all-time high here? I mean, we were voted in as the all-American city at one point, weren't we?
That's true.
And why was that? And you have to also ask yourself, what brings in crime into cities? I mean, sure, I think part of that's going to be economy is going to be one of them.
Yeah, big time.
Clashes of culture, I think. Cultural differences are going to bring in sometimes.
Transient, mainly. Transients come in, and that's really the high crime thing, because transients aren't here. They're not residents. They just come through. But besides the gangs, you know, but they've worked hard on the gangs. I remember when there'd be 4 or 5 murders a year.
That's,
you know, and that was like average. I'm not kidding you. I'm not exaggerating. There was quite a few. There was quite a few in the 70s.
Well, and that's true. I remember talking to some of the officers and stuff like that before that had said there were some pretty bad areas,
especially
some pretty
on
tough
West
guys.
Main Street, the West Main Street area. You know, the West Chapel and all that. That was very high crime-ridden area.
Well, that's funny because Matt and I were talking about that earlier. Is if you had to separate part of Santa Maria, would you say that area is where the crime is? And I think that now, because of the property boom and stuff like that, it's kind of spread out across the city now.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, it's more, if it's anything, it's more still on the northwest side, but it's more sporadic, and
Right.
I think, you know, people can live more in one house. And again, it's transients too. I mean, you know, you got 11 people living in a 3-bedroom house, and they're all adults.
Yeah, that's kind of inviting it right there.
Yeah, I lived across the street from an apartment complex, just 2 apartments on the west side one time, and they had 15 people and about 9 cars in those 2 places.
That's insane.
Yeah,
That's
one place
not
had
safe.
8 beds. I went in there one day and they had 8 mattresses
That's not even
laying
safe.
on the ground.
No,
So
that's
that's
not good.
No, and both of them were 1-bedroom apartments.
Yep. But, you know, like we were just saying, it seems like it is kind of, you know, over on this side or not that side. But just, you know, like when I think, well, if I'm living over on the south side of town or something, maybe over there I don't see all this stuff happening. But just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Yeah, you're right.
You know,
That's
I mean,
true.
something could be happening right next door to me. And unless I'm out there watching it, how would I ever know?
Have you guys ever looked it up where the sex crime or the sex offenders listings are?
Yeah, I've looked that up, and I know there's a couple in my neighborhood.
Yeah, I don't look it up. I just refuse to because I'm afraid I'll find the guy next door or her next door. I don't. Yeah, I'm
But
serious.
if you have kids, wouldn't you rather know?
Yeah, I would agree. No, I totally agree with you. It's just that you just like, because when we did, my daughter came in our house one time and said, "Hey, look who lives here,"
Oh,
and
man.
just showed less than 500 feet from my front door there was a sex offender that lived there, and we went, "Whoa."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well,
Yeah.
one thing I'd like to say is why
Sorry, guys.
isn't the media actually bringing up actual news for us?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a good
okay,
question.
so it's news that we're at the top 10, but the true news of the article should be what exactly is causing it?
Yeah, how did we
I
get
agree.
here?
That's a good point. Yes,
You know,
absolutely. How did we get here?
That's exactly right. How did we get here? What is it that's taking us there? What in our culture today is taking us to this point, and that we're so willing to allow it to happen?
Yeah,
as
that's
well?
a good point right there. Because that's something, and we are allowing it to happen. And I don't like saying that because I would like to think I'm not allowing it to happen. But unless we're out doing something about it, other than just going to work and living our lives, we're kind of being complacent.
Right. And there are deterrents to stopping these kinds of crimes too. Community service, I think, is something that's very strong for that, which if our police are getting involved in that, then, 2 hoots for them for yay.
Yep.
Because 2 hoots for them. But anyways,
Yeah, I was wondering where you're going with that. Right?
but the truth of the matter is we need that. We need parents to be able to offer good guidance for their children.
I think that's a big one.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
a lot of these crimes we see, they're young people. They get started doing this young. They get in the wrong path by the time they're 13 or 14 years old. And
Especially single parents
You
who
know-
have to work, things like that. Just.
You have to know who your kids are hanging out with.
yeah,
But I can't say anything because my mom raised 7 children. My dad had passed away when I was young, and even had left the family when I was very, very young. So my mom literally raised all 7 of us from when we were children. So I can't say it's bad parenting because my mom, she used to follow. Now, God bless her, she's gone. She's in heaven now, but she used to follow us to school.
yeah.
To make sure you can imagine you're 16 years old and your mom pulls up. Oh, okay, you're here. But she did.
As parents, we recognize our children, or we're supposed to. We recognize their weaknesses and their
Yeah,
strengths.
that's
We
true,
know
John.
which ones need a little bit more leaning on. You can't treat each child equally because each child is different.
Right.
I know both of my boys are like night and day, and I know which ones need a little bit leaning. I know when they need it. And I do my best as a father. I'm a single parent. I have full custody of my boys, and it's not an easy task, but I know my kids are not going to be going out robbing people, looking for cars to break into, looking to strong arm people, looking at gangsters as superheroes.
Oh, cool. No, yeah.
My kids do not do that. They detest it.
Yeah.
And they detest it because of the conversations I've had with them, because of the things that I show them, because they know there's a better life out there than that, and that if they want something good out of life, they can get it.
Yeah, but you've given them hope.
Well, that's part.
Hope and dreams. And that's really what sustains a kid, right? I mean, if you tell a kid, you've got talent, you've got ability, you've got this. And then there's the other side where parents don't do that at all.
Right.
They don't recognize anything good in their children. I mean, I've heard parents say to their kids, I wish you were never born. So, yeah, you give that to a child at, say, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old.
And you say it repeatedly.
Oh, exactly. You say it again and
it's
again
gonna
and
build
again.
into it. And that's another thing. And so in community service and with our police and stuff like that, if they can break the trend by finding the parents that do say that to their children because they've been told that by their parents probably, we can do something. We can make a difference. We can instill within our children a sense of loyalty, responsible, and what do you say it when a person really likes themselves? The confidence.
Self-confidence.
Yes.
Yeah, but you're also told in school that you were born out of nothing. You're evolved into something. So that's what they think. To get what you can out of life. They don't have a respect for deity or anything either sometimes. So that could be a big issue too.
Very, very much so.
Yeah.
I wrote a little thing here. I'll go ahead and read it for real quick. It's Santa Maria's rating by the FBI Uniform Crime Report of 2012 has put us in the top 10 most violent and likely cities to become a victim in the state. The local TV and newspapers have been reporting on the new statistics, but what gets me is that none of them are investigating why, which is what we've been talking about. That's like a doctor giving you meds to control a medical problem rather than fixing the problem to begin with. It is my opinion that there are many reasons for our current situation. We have to take a look at our economy, the stringent guidelines set by our city council for companies to move in, our under-policed community per capita, and the social class of culture which allows for inappropriate behaviors. The biggest problem we have, though, is the gangs that are running amok like internal marauders. So I say to both sides of the political aisles, you who are Republicans, let us arm ourselves. Let us be armed per our Second Amendment in the public and everywhere we go so that we don't have to be victims succumbing to those who are criminals who do carry everywhere till the chance encounter with the police. And then as soon as they're out, they carry again. Now to you who are on the liberal mass of the other side with the Democrats, If you believe that the militia are the only ones to have firearms, then call them out. The internal marauders are all about us, and it's time you do something to deter it before they're in your homes and you can't get them out. We need our mayors in our cities, county supervisors, local representatives, local senators, and state governors, the state governor, to quit thinking they can protect us on our streets and let us protect ourselves. They cannot take the responsibility. God, I hear that train out there again.
Wow.
They cannot take the responsibility of protecting us lest they become civilly liable.
Yeah.
And it's an impossibility. There's no way for them to be with us every second, every moment of the day and then expect that we'll be safe the next day. It's a pipe dream, and we don't live necessarily off of pipe dreams. We live off of hopes from our actions.
Yep.
And these actions prove a different story. It's almost as if they're supporting the criminals rather than those of us who are law-abiding.
That's a good point. I mean, it really is. They're coming at it through a backwards type of way to get at it. You know, I mean, it seems very backwards to me.
It is. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable that their mentality is so elitist that that's what they can do and think.
Well, I won't get hurt. This can't happen to me.
Yeah.
You know, that's...
Yeah, there's some, you mentioned some things that laws have been passed and things have been, basically hurt the community, trying to help the community.
Right.
Just recently, remember the little sandwich signs? You can't have a sandwich sign in front of your business any longer. The little sandwich sign, you just little tent signs,
Okay.
talking about the tent signs. Who was that hurting? What
yeah.
was going on with that?
It was making people fat.
But it drove a person out of business. I knew a person that said that we rely on that thing out there to draw in business. And sure enough, man, they made that law, and he tried to fight it. They said, no, we don't care. We don't care about your business. We care about aesthetics of the land.
Thank you for shopping Santa Maria.
Yeah, and do you notice that the signs aren't very high in Santa Maria, that they have to be a certain level, and that's it? There's only a few signs in the whole city. One of them is the Buckboard Hotel. Do you know that?
Oh, my.
I didn't even realize
That's
that.
it.
I think I
Sounds
because
like-
it's grandfathered in. It's only allowed like that because it's grandfathered in.
Wow.
It was before a certain date.
And it's such a nice sign.
But who cares how high the signs are? It's stupid. It's stupid stuff like that. Now they're going to call us and they're going to say, "Jim, you're wrong." And I'm going to say, "So I get to say it if I'm wrong."
God bless
That's
America.
that's what it's about, right?
Absolutely.
That's right. You're right, Joe. It's sometimes we just do stupid things thinking we're protecting people and we're really not.
Yeah, and then you got to think too. The economy in Santa Maria has got to be. We need it to always be strong, vibrant, and growing. And Santa Maria has put so many regulations and things on businesses that
unbelievable.
want to come into this town
Yes.
that it drives them away.
Yeah.
And that's not going to work for us.
Right.
We need to open the floodgates, get them in, allow them to pour money into our environment so that we have more police officers or have the ability to get more spending.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to have
That's a
a
good point.
vision of where you really want to go. As a you look at, if you, Joe, when you're the manager of your store there, right? You're going to hire people and you're going to look for people that are going to help your business. That's what you're going to do.
Absolutely.
If they don't have the talent to sell, but yet they got a talent to display things, you're not going to have that person selling too long. You're going to have them keep making displays and keep putting stuff out and make sure everything's priced right, because that's what that person's into.
Right.
See, it looks like Santa Maria doesn't know where it's going, except for, hey, if you got a service business, we're here. McDonald's, Burger King,
Bring the big guys in that'll hold everybody back.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
But we need some of the big guys in
Even
here.
though you get Zodiac, though, Zodiac's here, they don't pay very well. They pay right about the $10 mark. The highest is probably about $16, $17, and that's a full-on industry out there off
Sure
of Industrial Way.
But that brings in a whole nother conversation, and that is, we get mad at people like Walmart, things like that. The truth of the matter is, the people that want to buy from them can buy from them. People that don't want to buy from them don't have to.
Yeah. Right.
That's how businesses stay in business and make changes in their structures. That's how they set their prices. We do not have to support something.
Right,
Yeah,
we don't.
We have
And
our
there-
own choice.
I've heard bad and good about Walmart. I shop there. I like shopping there.
I shop there as well.
You know what's really crazy? I told you guys this one. This was my favorite one. They're outlawed in the city of San Francisco. Did you know that?
Walmart?
Walmart is not allowed to build even one office building, let alone. But guess what they
Does
did?
that keep people healthy?
Guess what they did? They did something even smarter than that.
Oh, wow.
What they did is they said, guess what? We will deliver anything into San Francisco for free. So you can buy it in San Leandro and live in San Francisco and have it delivered to you. You can't. When people got entrepreneurial and they think beyond the box, like I was saying about Santa Maria, that's when you come up with these great ideas.
You can't stop it with that.
That's right. You
works.
cannot stop innovation. That's what Joe was just saying.
Can you imagine not having a supermarket?
Yeah,
There was a time when we didn't have supermarkets.
That's
They
true.
were all
That's
mom and
absolutely
pop
true.
shops.
Mom and pops and stuff, yeah.
And things changed. Things will continue to change. But if we try to make laws that prevent change and growth, we'll become stagnant and we'll fade away.
Yep, took the word
The
right out
other
of
thing
my
is,
mouth.
I just want to make it one more thing before we break away. We also need some kind of way of teaching our children that it's not just about English, history, and stuff like that. We got to get the kids in shop. We got to get them activated in technical aspects of life because they're not going to be a teacher. They're not going to be the guy who writes the great novel. They're not. We got to really look around and see if we need technical schools along with our regular type of structural schools.
Let's think of this. Okay, what is it when you have somebody that comes in and works for you? It's an internship or
interns, right? Right.
Or you take on somebody an apprentice, apprenticeships and stuff like that. The guy that wants to be the great writer has to have life experience to give to it make it something.
That's true.
How can he do that without getting out there and seeing what people suffer and go through or what people gain and get from it? So
great point.
That's why I think the greatest poets and stuff like that lived through some of the worst times, and that's why we remember them most because we can identify with them. And that's really where it stands. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to jump into the pro-Second Amendment article, which kind of will lead us into what this show's about. We're about firearms in the Second Amendment right. And this guy writes this article that kind of says it how I believe it, and I think Matt believes it, and how we all kind of get along with it. But it'll lead us into the idea of the next article, which is a city that has had on their books a law that says everybody has to have a firearm. And they have not had any murders. It's amazing how that works.
It is.
So we'll be right back with you on the firing line to talk about that.
You're listening to On the Firing Line on the Information Station.
This is On the Firing Line with Matt, Jim, and Joe. We will be right back with you on the firing line. If you have any questions, give us a call at 888-625-1440 or in the Santa Maria area, 928-1440. Don't forget, you can always listen in on am1440.com.
Tactical Guns and Gear is the Central Coast leader in tactical rifles, pistols, shotguns, and accessories. Building an AR-15, they have lower receivers, parts kits, trigger groups, and a ton of other AR parts from the most popular companies and stuff.
They are also the home of the Women's 101 Firearms and Women's Advanced Pistol classes and have trained thousands of local ladies.
The store is located off the 101 freeway in Santa Maria near the North Broadway exit. Look for the big rifle sign on the freeway as well as the giant 5-ton Tactical military truck, and they're now open on Mondays. America!
On the Firing Line is happy to have Law Offices of Christopher Coleman as a sponsor. The Law Offices of Christopher Coleman is located in Santa Barbara on 2019B State Street, specializing in personal injury and, more importantly, the Second Amendment and On the Firing Line with Matt and Joe. Give them a call at 805-682-3352, serving the Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, and San Luis Obispo areas for over 25 years. You are on the firing line with Matt, Jim, and Joe. Be a part of today's show by calling in at 1-888-625-1440, or if you're in the local Santa Maria area, please give us a call at 928-1440.
That's right, you are on the firing line with Matt and Joe. Give us a call at 1-888-625-1440, or if you're in the Santa Maria area, 928-1440. All right, we're going to get into the Second Amendment talk now.
Absolutely. When the patriarchs of our young nation debated certain inalienable rights, one leading figure eloquently stated the following: firearms stand in importance to the Constitution itself. They are the American people's liberty, teeth, and keystone under independence. From the hour the Pilgrims landed to the present day's events, occurrences, and tendencies prove that to ensure peace, security, and happiness, the rifle and the pistol are equally indispensable. The very atmosphere of firearms anywhere restrains evil interference. They deserve a place of honor with all that's good. Those words were spoken by our first president, George Washington.
Yep.
That's some strong stuff right there.
And we see it time and again, these guys that said this stuff a couple hundred years ago, and they literally could have said it yesterday.
Absolutely.
And it makes just as much sense, So it's just great to see that.
Hey, it looks like we have a caller on the line. John? Chuck, how you doing?
Doing pretty good, Joe.
Excellent. Good to hear from you.
Yeah. Hey, my question is, if we are having accelerated crime in Santa Maria, and we're in the top 10 of murder and all this stuff,
Right.
how come our chief of police won't allow us to have carry permits?
That's a question that deserves an answer. It really is. Yep. I think that our city and our chief of police here in town should really consider that. They can put themselves. Well, they like to say that there's too much civil liability for themselves. We know that that's not always necessarily true, and even if it is, at what point are they going to stand up for what's right?
That's it. Because if you're counting on the police to protect you, you know that you've got probably, depending upon where you live, and I live in the nice part of Santa Maria, it'd probably take them 15 minutes to get here, if not 20.
Even if it's 5 minutes,
it's too late.
That's 5 minutes too long.
Yeah. Absolutely, because it only takes one quarter billionth of a second to pull a trigger, and it's over.
Yep.
That's it, and that concerns me. But it concerns me more that I see, as I read things and I see people across the country getting permits, and I look on these maps that show there's only really 2 states left that won't allow permits.
And that's one of us is us.
One of them is us.
Right.
Yep.
And it's like we said before, our politicians cannot protect us. Our law enforcement cannot protect us. They are the public servant of vengeance. We have them come pick up the people afterwards, if they can catch them, and put them into prison, hopefully to punish them.
That's it. Mop up afterwards.
It's unbelievable that they don't want us. And it's, what really gets me too is we're being pushed into a society that says, what? You want to protect yourself? You would take another person's life, even though they're trying to take yours?
It's the victim's role.
You're a devil for that.
Yeah.
Well, I'd hate to do it. Personally, I'd hate to shoot somebody.
Same here.
It'd be my last option. But if there's 1 or 2 guys that are twice my size beating down my door, I have no choice.
Well, that's why they call it the great equalizer.
That's it.
And that right there, I mean, that's the whole debate, And it makes no sense that as we watch crime rise where we live, that they're trying to keep us from defending ourselves.
Right.
It's absolutely absurd.
Well, I appreciate you guys letting me voice my concerns there.
You're welcome anytime to call on the show.
I'll go back to working on my AR.
Awesome.
I love that guy.
Take care, Chuck. Thanks for calling in.
All right,
Awesome.
see you later.
Chuck's
we
a
live
great guy out there. Go ahead.
We live in a society, like I told you, that the President of the United States is in an interview, he grabs and catches a fly, right?
Right.
And says, I got that sucker, and threw it down like we naturally would. Like if any guy gets,
I got him.
Got him, and threw him to the ground,
Did you see
right?
that? Yes.
So PETA, the organization PETA, sends him a fly catching trap. Said, this is what you should do with the
Yeah.
I mean, how stupid is this society getting? But folks, that's where it's going.
Don't hurt it.
Yeah, flies could go extinct, heaven forbid.
A fly.
What do we do then?
A fly.
Oh, my goodness.
And that's part of it, the problem. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The regulations have gotten so far out of hand, and it's to the point now where we have so many regulations, you can't even enforce all of them.
Yep.
You have to pick which ones and choose, and you'll pick it by the attitude and the face you wear in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. And how do you know that you picked the right one? I mean,
that's the grub.
Yeah.
That is the rub. How do you know you got the right one? Because you got enough voices out there screaming at you, telling you got the right one, or is it really?
That's the truth. When do we get to stand up for what we believe in?
That reminds me of people that they don't want to drive around in their car with a gun locked up in their bag because they think it's because of all the gun stuff on TV that portrays it to be evil and bad, and they want to go to the range and shoot, but they're literally scared to drive around with what they own legally.
Which is ridiculous.
And it makes no sense.
Especially if they have no intent of robbing somebody, going out to hurt somebody or doing anything.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Your gun's going to jump out of the bag and start shooting?
Yeah.
They literally think that, yes. Because of the media and everybody demonizing
down,
these things.
Down, boy. Down, gun, down.
Hey, what are you doing?
Oh my God! But
So yeah,
I think that leads us back to George Washington, though. We need the firearm for many reasons.
Yeah.
It does not have to be evil reasons. There are many good reasons why we can have it.
Yep.
And if you can't identify with that, then you cannot identify with all the blood that has been spilled to give us what we have today. Because without the firearm, we would not have it.
yeah, very true.
And let's go on with that one article that I was reading. Those who question the original intent of the Second Amendment and want to place an undue burden on citizens' rights to bear arms forget that criminals will always have the ability to find weapons that can injure and kill. The Second Amendment has been part of our constitutional fabric for centuries and remains in place to protect the innocent, not the criminals. There is no question that criminals prefer victims who are defenseless and unarmed. Our system of laws should be determinately impact the ability of the law-abiding citizen to protect themselves.
Yeah,
The Second Amendment is not a political football. It is a cornerstone stone of our Bill of Rights. I firmly believe in the ability of our citizens to protect their lives and their property, and the right to bear arms is a critical component of this intrinsic value that we all cherish. Unfortunately, it is not difficult to imagine a scenario when local, state, and federal law enforcement may be insufficient to protect against imminent danger, and when citizens must have the ability to defend themselves with firearms if they so choose. This happened all too recently in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina with rampant lawlessness in New Orleans. The government's response to this catastrophic event was woefully inadequate, but the loss of human life and property would have been much worse had our citizens not been able to defend themselves and their valuable possessions from looters, thieves, and hardened, desperate criminals.
yeah. We've talked about that before. The guys that are standing up there with shotguns and stuff. I mean,
Right.
And obviously we don't want to ever get pushed into that situation, but I mean that's part of being an American. I mean, you have the right to defend your property, and we're losing scope of that.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. We're losing scope because we're thinking the police should be doing this.
Right.
Instead of us Americans
Right.
being...
I'm going to stand up and do something for myself. I'm going to protect myself.
That's right. And me and Joe did a wonderful story, which I later seen the movie afterwards of Athens, Georgia, where they did that very thing. It was the men who stood up and said, wait a minute.
Yep.
Corruption is rampant. We can't have this in our... And they stood up. They took notice. They didn't say, well, let's get our police. They couldn't because the police was corrupt.
Right.
And they had to take over, and then they led back to peace and prosperity and freedom in their city.
We know what's best for us.
Think of this.
I agree with you. We're not that stupid that we need the President of the United States or anybody else we elected to tell us how to live our life.
That's right. God, I just had a thought. If we could work with our police department and our police department was open to working with us, even if they had fears of litigation, they worked with us, all of us, with firearms, we would have there would be no crimes going on because everybody that turned around wouldn't know if that person next to him was working with the police department, was armed, knew how to use it, and knew the law well enough to be able to use it when they could use it.
And we've seen good examples of it. There have been towns that they do stuff like that.
Matt, you made a perfect point, and that goes right into our next article.
Let's do it.
25 years murder-free in Guntown, USA.
Imagine that.
Crime rate plummeted after law required firearms for residents. This was published back in 2007. And it goes like this. As the nation debates whether more guns or fewer can prevent tragedies like the Virginia Tech massacre, a notable anniversary passed last month in Georgetown that witnessed a dramatic plunge in crime and violence after mandating residents to own firearms. In March of 1982, 25 years ago, the small town of Kennesaw responded to a handgun ban in Morton Grove, Illinois, unanimously passing an ordinance requiring each head of household to own and maintain a gun. Since then, despite desired predictions of Wild West showdowns and increased violence and accidents, not a single resident has been involved in a fatal shooting as a victim, attacker, or defender.
Wow. So not only has nobody done anything stupid, even criminals aren't doing stupid stuff anymore.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Imagine that.
Well, don't you get tired of that? We ridiculed the Chicago commissioner and said, and you know what? We haven't heard anything, have we?
No.
Of course not.
Nothing. Zip. Nada.
We know they're all scared of us.
Well, because the thing of it is, it's true. People who are knowledgeable, they take responsibility.
Yep. Yeah.
That's just it. The more knowledge you have, that's your gateway, your doors to getting out of where you are.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's why we have schools. That's why we have all these great things and professors out there who are supposed to lead us in the right path of righteousness. That's a whole other story.
Let's not go there then.
All right. The crime rate initially plummeted for several years after the passage of the ordinance, with the 2005 per capita crime rate actually significantly lower than it was in 1981, the year before the passage of the law. Prior to the enactment of the law, Kennesaw had a population of just 5,242, but a crime rate significantly higher, with a 4,332 per 100,000 capita than the national average of 3,899 per 100,000. The latest statistics available for the year 2005 show the rate of 2,027 per 100,000. Meanwhile, the population has skyrocketed to 28,000.
Wow. So the population has pretty much 6 times over doubled, but the crime rate has dropped more than 50%.
Right. Unbelievable.
That's amazing.
By comparison, the population of Morton Grove, the first city in Illinois to adopt a gun ban for anyone other than police officers, has actually dropped slightly and stands at 22,202, according to the 2005 statistics. More significantly, perhaps the city's crime rate increased by 15.7% immediately after the gun ban.
So basically people saying, oh, they don't have, I guarantee you they don't have a gun.
Yeah.
You could go in there and beat the hell out of them. No one will ever care.
You know, we all say criminals are dumb. They're not all dumb.
This is true.
And they do go to school to get better.
Oh, yeah.
And school being prison, exactly. Even though the overall crime rate in Cook County rose only 3%, today by comparison, the township crime rate stands at 2,268 per 100,000. That was not what some predicted. In a column titled Guntown USA, Art Buchwald suggested...
No, Buchwald. This guy is like, boing. They're getting talk out of your mouth.
Suggested Kennesaw would soon become a place where routine disagreements between neighbors would be settled in shootouts.
I remember that.
The Washington Post mocked Kennesaw as the brave little city, soon to be pistol-packing capital of the world. Phil Donahue invited the mayor on his show. Reuters, the European news service, today visited the Kennesaw controversy following the Virginia Tech massacre. Police Lieutenant Craig Graydon said, when the Kennesaw law was passed in 1982, there was a substantial drop in crime, and we have maintained a really low crime rate since then. We are sure it is one of the lowest crime towns in the metro area. Kennesaw is just north of Atlanta. The Reuters story went on to report, since the Virginia Tech shootings, some conservative U.S. talk show hosts have rejected attempts to link the massacre to the availability of guns, arguing that had students been allowed to carry weapons on campus, someone might have been able to shoot the killer.
That's true.
Yep. Virginia Tech, like many of the other nations and schools and colleges and campuses, is a so-called gun-free zone, which Second Amendment supporters say invites gun violence, especially from disturbed individuals seeking to kill as many victims as possible.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's true. We've seen that. I mean, since this, when he's talking about here, we've seen that happen probably 3 or 4 other times on a huge scale.
Hey, it was just last week we read, I think it was our opening story for the Marine Show, where the cops chased a bad guy who was armed onto a school campus. The guy ran right past signs that said gun-free zone.
Yeah, imagine that. He didn't drop his gun.
But the cops had guns. And I think they were going to be in trouble for that, possibly.
Is that one of the things where they stop chasing the guy because they're thinking about all the laws that they might be breaking by doing the right thing?
You know, but the truth of the matter is, the point is to be made. Firearms can protect you. Firearms can protect you from bad guys, from criminals, marauders, from invading armies, from your own government, from corrupt officials. That doesn't mean go grab a gun and start shooting up your government. That means that is a deterrent for them so that they do not overstep their bounds.
Yeah, exactly.
They know the bigger picture. If we all look at the small picture here, we'll never see the big picture. The big picture is if we have firearms, they will have to respect us because they know that a revolution is right around the corner if they don't.
You know, the strange thing about that, and I know who Art Buchwald is, I'm surprised you guys don't know who he is. Kind of a really strange kind of personality. He sued Eddie Murphy over the movie Coming to America.
Okay.
He's the guy who said he wrote it. And he won his suit. I mean, he's just a strange guy. He's a writer, and he smokes cigars, and he talks out of the side of his mouth. But he talks like crazy things. He's always saying stupid stuff like this. But you look at the real statistics will close anybody's mouth, and that's what you just produced.
Exactly.
Real statistics that really did happen, not fake, not people shooting each other on the sides of the street.
Yep.
This really did happen. Crime did drop dramatically in one place and rose in another. Mm-hmm. It really did happen. And people aren't taking notice of that. They're not saying, well, wait a minute, maybe I shouldn't be with the crowd.
I think if they are taking notice, they're very quick to kind of blind themselves with it. They don't really want to admit to themselves that, these firearms are aiding in stopping this problem.
Right.
I think they're probably thinking to themselves they can stop the problem in a better way to them.
They think people are going to get better.
Exactly, which we probably know they're probably not.
Look at San Luis Obispo. San Luis Obispo, while it has its conservative areas, it is also kind of a liberal area, I think,
kind
too.
Of, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Their sheriff is pretty open. Ian Parkinson, I believe it is very open in giving out CCWs. Do we see their crime going up and skyrocketing up? Do we see pistol shootouts all over the streets of San Luis Obispo?
It's a good point. Because we don't.
Because people are real people. I mean, some people are stupid. We understand that. There's always going to be
there's always
bad people. But people are reasonable. Just because you get in an argument with your neighbor, you're not going to pull out your gun.
Well, I would certainly hope not.
And you may have an occasional nut that does that. You can't let that person ruin it for everybody else.
Well, wouldn't they do that no matter what? If they don't have a gun, they're going to burn down his house.
Yeah, that's true. If they're nuts, they're nuts.
Maybe they'll both pull out guns.
No, we don't want that.
No, but here's the point. Instead of getting into an argument, you have your criminal guy who has a gun, pulls out his gun, and he shoots his neighbor. Well, that's a tragedy story.
Yeah.
Yep.
Instead, you have two neighbors who maybe are good guys or maybe criminals. They pull out their guns at each other, and they go, okay, let's back down.
This is stupid right now. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
or maybe it wouldn't even get to them pulling out their guns because they both know that they're armed.
Yes.
And that this little argument could potentially end in me not being with my family anymore.
And that's, Matt, is the point of what this whole town was about. That was a truth dart.
That was definitely a truth dart. Because that's the way most people would think. Wait a minute. I'm going to be gone.
I could die. Even though I have a gun, I could die. This would be a shootout. Oh, my God.
And I'm going to die because I disagreed with this guy because he's standing on my lawn.
Yeah.
It would be something
His
stupid
dog
like
poops
that.
on my lawn every morning.
Yeah. I got one of those. I got a neighbor who lets their dog do his business.
Easy.
But I don't own a gun yet. Yet.
I think it was Thomas Jefferson that said that the greatest exercise of the mind, the body, and the soul is a firearm. And what did he mean by that? I mean, each one of us can think about that ourselves. I personally think that he meant the exercise of the mind.
Yeah.
Of when I can use it, when I can't.
Excellent.
What is the point
it's that I'm
putting
puts
into
maturity in you.
Right. And physical exercise, hey, if you've ever gone shooting all day, you know it's a great physical exercise.
Yeah, absolutely.
It definitely is. And the soul, I think that has
both
a lot
of those
to do.
play into it, kind of. I mean, if you're doing all this, if you're thinking about things and you're physically exercising, you're going to become a healthier person, probably. Inside and out.
You're going to want to do what's right.
But I like the statistics of it. Yeah, I like the statistics of what you just read. The statistics is that we are reasonable people and we're not going to shoot one another. But then another place they say, hey, criminal activity just goes up because who's going to catch me?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and God, that kind of reminds me of what, unless it's completely a violent crime now, police are going to back off on chases.
Yeah, that's right.
And that makes no sense to me.
No.
And they're doing that, and that's another for public safety in quotes thing, because they don't want to have anybody get hurt. And I understand they don't want anybody hurt, but it falls back to what's doing the right thing. Who's not? You're letting somebody go. They're running for a reason.
Yeah, and the domino effect is this: you let somebody do something bad and they get away with it, and they get away with it. Then we have more crimes stacked on top of each other.
Oh well, Tommy got away with it. I can do it.
And if they're afraid to do it, then they don't do any more crimes because they're afraid each time. Or if he gets stopped and he can't do any crimes anymore.
I'm not doing that because Tommy went to prison.
Right. God forbid. I have my boys and I love them, and I would never want to see them get killed. But if they do something evil, that makes them evil. It takes a lot for them to get away from that and do what's right.
Absolutely, yeah. Once you get drawn into either side of it, it could go either way.
Yep. All right, everybody, have a great weekend out there. We enjoy being on the show with you guys. Please be a part of the show. Get on our Facebook and leave some comments.
Yeah, write some comments on Facebook. We're checking it every night, and we can get back to you, and maybe we'll bring up something you put down on the show.
Absolutely.